session on open educational resources. Expert for the day is Ms. Nahar Irfan from the library. She has been with the Ewing Memorial Library and is proficient in IL instructions, OER instructions, and circulation. She will be going over the session with you today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are doing great and nice to see you. Okay, first of all, he introduced me, but I want to introduce myself again. My name is Nahar Irfan and I'm the representative of Formal Libraries. And thanks again, CLT, for inviting me again. I had a fellow representative, but unfortunately, she had something to do at the last moment. Okay, so today we are going to discuss how open educational sources can be helpful for the faculty in their course design or in their teaching methods, not as an extra burden, but as a flexible and sustainable teaching option, right? So we will not only talk about what OERs are, but how you can use it in your, you can meaningfully integrate into your courses or, teaching method and strategies as it, and how library can support you in this whole process, right? Okay, so these are the content outlines. We will talk about all of these points one by one. First, what is OER, what are the benefits? Of course, if anything has a benefits, definitely there are some challenges as well. And then what are the impact of OER on course design and difference between open access and open educational sources and Creative Commons licenses, how to locate credible OER sources, what are the, good disciplinary OER sources as well. And then I will talk about Primo. I will explain it what Primo actually is. Okay. So first, we need to understand what are open educational sources. So open educational sources are teaching, learning, and research material that are freely available under open licenses, and you are allowed to use them, share them, adapt them, and redistribute them legally. It's legal to do this, right? There are 5 R's that make it different from the other open access material or other available sources. What 5 R's are? First is retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. Let's see how they work. Retain. When we talk about retain, you can keep a copy. You can download a source. You can save it anywhere you want, in whatever the device you want to save it for, future reference. And then you can reuse it. You can use it in your teaching for learning purposes as well. You can, if you want to teach, you want to include that source into your course, or you want to use it into your lecture instructions, so you can use it as well. Then you can revise it. This is one of my favorite thing about OER sources. It gives you this privilege to adapt or adopt the source, right? If you want to use it as it is, you can adopt it. And if you want to make some changes or do some innovation in it, you can adopt it as well. And then you can remix it. It's not like because it's not like you are going to fulfill all your information need from a single source. It happens rarely, right? So maybe you find this chapter really good from this specific source, and you find this piece of information from this specific source, and now you can combine it and make your own, document for the whole course. So this is the remix R, and then you can redistribute it. You can share it with your fellows for learning purposes, for teaching purposes. You can share it with your students for teaching and learning purposes, and you can also use it for yourself for learning purposes. As I said, the definition is a teaching, learning, and research material. So you can use it for yourself as well, other than teaching. Okay, there are some benefits of open educational sources. First benefit is most of the time it is created by educators and scholars, right? So if educator or a scholar is creating a source, so it means it's a good source. Then reduce needs to create learning resources. Like it's not like whenever you are going to teach a course, you have to create a new course design. You can get like full build course from OER sources as well. If they fulfill your need, you can, adopt it or adapt it, or you can only use a specific part from that particular source, you can do as well. And then increase opportunity to collaborate, because from all over the world, people use OER, and then they create sources, they make courses, and they upload it for, freely available sources. So you can see the different geographical area perspective in it, right? Because they adapt it according to their local needs, right? According to what their students need. And then you can see the flexibility to adapt. I just explained it. You can adapt it according to your local needs. It means you can localize it, right? and then reduce costs and increase accessibility. I think this is very important for the country like Pakistan, the developing countries. Students cannot, especially students, they cannot afford like costly books if you are using international books. So they are, it's hard to import them, and they are very pricey. So it's a good database, or you can say you good platform where you can get access to good international sources. So yeah, it's cost effective. And then freedom of access encourages lifelong learning. When you have access to openly available sources, I think it instigates you to learn more, right? And then inclusion of different voices and perspective. As I said, multiple geographical areas people use OER, and then they publish their courses, but whatever the activities they created for their class, or the whole courses as well. You can find the case studies as well on OER sources. So you can see multiple perspective and voices in the courses or the piece of information. And authentic or real life learning experiences, you get a real life learning experiences, and OER sources are authentic. We will talk about them, what kind of authentic OER sources are, but these are some benefits. Okay, when we have some benefits, we also have to face some challenges, right? So I've mentioned few challenges over here. First is quality and credibility. First of all, not all OER sources are peer reviewed and good for academic purpose, right? Because I say this in my information literacy session every single time, that we are living in a digital world where everyone can write anything about anything, anytime, right? So it's very it's not good for us to trust the source blindly. So it's not like if somebody is claiming that this is OER source, so you are going to, blindly trust that source. No, you are not going to do it, because if it's peer reviewed, it's a good source. If it's not, then there is a big note for that source. And then difficulty in accessing accuracy and reliability. Most of the people have no idea how to check the reliability and accuracy of that particular piece of information. So it also act as a barrier to use OER sources for them. And then there's this perception, if it's free, it means it's of low quality. But you know what? Nothing comes free in life. So OER also not free for you. Why I'm saying this? Because if you see the second challenge, discoverability and accessibility, OERs are scattered across dozens of different repositories. It's not a single platform where you are going to access all the OER sources. No, it's not. You are going to search multiple sources, and you are going to invest your time and energy. So it's not free, right? And then another discoverability and accessibility issue that we face while using OER is inadequate metadata. Maybe they are not giving those specific keywords that you are going to search in that database. So yeah, it will not search your desired information if they didn't index those particular keywords in their database, right? And then we have sustainability and updating issue. OER is a free source. So you know what? Free sources mostly work on fundings, right? So if there was a funding available for the university and they started this OER project, and after the funding has ended, now who's going to update it? Because we have no sources to update the material on OER platform, right? So this is why sustainability and updating issue we have to face in OER. And content may become updated without regular updation. And then we have to face technological and format hurdles. What happens? Maybe the format which is very accessible or easy to use in Pakistan, maybe it's not very convenient for the people in Australia. They don't use that particular format. So maybe they uploaded an OER source on the OER platform, and that particular format doesn't work with your devices or your geographical area. So maybe sometimes internet issues, and sometimes they are server down, and these kind of issues you have to face it. Because internet is the biggest issue in Pakistan these days. We all know this. It's just down anytime. And the lack of awareness and training. Most of the people, they have no idea about OER sources. They have no idea even they exist or not, right? So because of the awareness, they have no idea either they exist or not, and they have no training on it. They have no idea how to use them, so they ignore it. So it's also one of the biggest challenge we have to face: lack of awareness and training. People don't have training. And then time and workload constraint. Again, as I said, it's scattered, so it's not a single platform where you're going to all the OER sources. So you have to invest your time, and you sometimes you feel loaded with work. So, but it's for me, it's like one-shot game. Once you invest the time, then it will be easy for you to use it or maintain it for the rest of your semester. And then intellectual property right licensing confusion. Most of the people has no idea what are these concepts, and because they don't know how to use the source, so they ignore it for the safer side because they don't know either it's ethical to use this source or not, so they completely ignore it. So these are some challenges that they have to face while using OER courses. Okay, how OER sources can impact on course design. You can integrate OER sources into your curriculum. Like you can design your courses around skills and task based, around your students' skills, what kind of tasks you want them to do according to the level of their skills. And you can use multiple different diversified kind of formats, like you can use text, videos, quiz to support multi-learning styles, right? And then it's really helpful for the pedagogical enhancement. Rather, you are just replacing textbook. You are using OER for like active learning strategy. You can use multimedia, you can use case studies, you can use assessment, you can also get the graph of activities from OER sources, how the other instructor created or manage all the activity relevant to that specific topic. And then quality and evaluation. I think this is the point where libraries step in. I think institutions should make this checklist like or give you this whole list, like what kind of authentic and reliable courses are available, or you can use them while being FCCU student or faculty member. So yeah, if you feel difficulty, so libraries are always there to check the reliability, accuracy, and accessibility for you as well. So these are some impact on OER courses. Okay, this is one of the question people ask, what's the difference between open access and OER sources? So if I say that open access is OER is basically a subset of open access, it will not be wrong, but there is a difference. So first we see the definition. The definition of open access is free online access to scholarly research publications, right? You can get access to freely available online scholarly publication like articles from journals and review articles or conference papers, these kind of things. And the definition of OER, we already talked about it: free and openly licensed teaching and learning material, right? It includes textbooks and assessments, activities, these kind of things. If we see the purpose of open access, to disseminate research finding, right? It relates with the definition because it provides you online access to scholarly research publications. So the purpose is to disseminate research finding. If we see the purpose of open educational resources is to support teaching, learning, and training, right? Trainer also use OER sources for lifelong learning. Content type, what kind of content type open access covers? Research articles, journals, thesis, conference papers. If you see OER content type, so it's textbooks, lecture notes, syllabi, videos, modules, and quiz. Kind of relevant to course design or student activities. If we see what's the audience of open access materials, scholars, researchers, and academics are the audience of open access. If we see the audience of OER, so they are teachers, students, trainers, and lifelong learning. When we see lifelong learners, they are like common people, those who wanna learn something new and be updated about something thing. And then we have key permission. What are the key permissions we have with open access? Free access, the right to read, download, and cite the material. Whenever we use a scholarly material, we give proper reference and text citation to give the proper credit to the author, and we can use it by paraphrasing it, or you can also quote it in inverted commas. So I think for me, this is for everyone. I think if everybody knows in academia that giving credit to the original author is the number one rule in academia. Number one ethical rule, right? If we see the key permission, OER has the 5 R's we talked about at the beginning of the session. You can retain it, use it, revise it, remix it, and you can redistribute it. So there is a difference in key permissions. If we talk about the licenses, all in open access, all rights are reserved under the publisher's name or the author's name, right? But if we talk about OER, so open licenses, they mostly, most of the time, they are under Creative Commons licenses. We will talk about them. one by one all the creative licenses. It will be really helpful for you to, for the future reference, to use OER sources. And they explicitly grants 5 hour permission. Common Creative Commons license give you the privilege to use 5 hours permission. Okay, now let's talk about the licensing we just talked about. These are Creative Commons licenses. These are 6 licenses. Let's talk about the very first one. If you see, there are symbols. Whenever you open any OER source, you will see these kind of symbols in front of the source. So you will understand what kind of permission this particular source have, what kind of R's I can use on this particular piece of information. If you see, the first one is attribution by. You must credit the creator, the title, and the license the work is under. Okay, for the first license, you have to give credit to the original author, and you can use all the R's for this license. All right. If material is under this license, you can use all the R. You can revise it, reuse it, retain it, remix it, redistribute it. But the only thing you have to do is to give credit to the original author. The second license is non-commercial. The work cannot be used for commercial purpose. You can use it for controlled environment for the class learning or for a training, but you cannot like publish it and earning from that piece of source information. No, you cannot do this. So it's non-commercial license. Then the third one is non-derivative. The work can only be used exactly how it is. You can only adopt it. You cannot adapt this source. So this is the limit of this license. Then we have fourth, share alike. Any new material produced using the work must be made available under the same license as the original work. Let's say you find this source really accurate for yourself and you want to use it, you adapt it, you mold it according to your local need, according to your students' need or your training need. And then if you want to use it, you're going to use the same license. So if someone else is want to use your created course or your created document, they are going to use the same license. So this is the demand of share alike license. And the fifth one is public domain. The copyright holder has voluntarily waived their rights and the work can be freely used. If the copyright holder, the owner of that piece of information, voluntarily waived their rights, okay, from now on anyone can use it. So it's available for everyone and you can apply all 5 hours to that particular piece of information. And then public domain. There are certain years after the death of copyright holder or the publisher, whatever it is. So after a few years, there is specific year, maybe 70 plus or 80 plus. After that, that particular piece of information comes under the public domain. So anyone can use it openly. It's not under anyone's copyright authority, right? But again, it doesn't mean that you are not going to give credit to the original author. Again, this is number one ethical rule. You have to give credit to the original author, whatever it is under public domain, CCO, whatever it is. But you have to give the credit to the original source. Okay, how to locate credible OERs? I really want to share my personal formula. First, as we know, FCC is a well-reputed institution and we have good databases, subscription, and online sources. So first you have to go to the library website, which is library.fccollege.edu.pk, and you can see the OER tab over there. You can click on it and you will see the list of all the OER sources that we think that are the reliable and authentic sources for academic purpose, right? But for the future, we are working more on it. We are going to add more into that list, but this is for you to, I want you to search that. The other trick I use, if I have no idea where to find OER sources, I search well-reputed universities on Google, like Harvard University OER sources list, Oxford University OER sources list. So it will show me the tab of OER sources that is available on their library website. So you can check because they are very authentic and good in universities and institute. So you can find OER sources as well like that, right? So this is my personal trick that I use. And then you can check the licenses, if the licenses are available under that piece of information. They have given the proper license, it means it's good source. And you can check you can evaluate the author. If you are from business and you think this author is very good, so you can access them, you can evaluate them through authors or through institution, like which institution posts that piece of information. And you can check the relevancy if the source is relevant to you. Is also one of the criteria for the credible OER source. If some OER databases or repositories give you this facility to read the rating comments or read reviews on their database. So if they have this tab over there, I would like you to, click on it and read the reviews relevant to that database. Okay, this is, I just assembled few OER repositories by discipline here. It's just for the reference. You can get this PPT as well. But these are few I just mentioned. So there are some subject specific OER sources as well. Most of the time they are generous, but they are subject specific as well. Okay, last but not the least, I really wanted to mention this. HOD of libraries, Farooq Saab, he specifically asked me to add this one. Recently, we changed our library automation software, and now we shift it to Alma. And the library catalog, or you can say the OPAC of library, is available on Primo from now on. All right. So this is the interface of library catalog or Primo. You can say this. You can check either a book is available in print format inside the library. You can use this search bar and you can search either that book is available in print format. But the best thing about this Primo facility is it's like a unified search platform. It also search from the print material that we have inside the library, also search from open access, also search from OER sources, right? And also search from multiple different repositories that Alma has added into their database, right? So that is why I'm saying it's a unified search platform. So you can get access to multiple kind of formats and content over there, right? And then we have multiple filters when you open it. For that, you have to go to library website. There is this tab for one search, and you click on it, will take you to the Primo interface, and you can use it. I really want you to play with this because it will be fun for you. We have advanced search tools, we have filters. You can minimize, you can specify your search query as much as you can, right? So it increases the search visibility because you are getting print material, what we have inside the library. There's journal, magazine, or book. You can also get access to open sources, open access sources, OERs, right, and other repository that they indexed in it. So yeah, it's a very good source. I really want you to explore it whenever you have time to do it. So if you are going to in future, if you are going to search for something, I would like you to search it first on Primo. So it will be good for the evaluation because we are also working on it, and we really want your views on it, how it works for you, and where you are facing some difficulties and issues. That's all from my side. If you have any question, you can ask me. And for your reference, as I mentioned, library website, we have multiple subscription on multiple different journals and databases. So we also have the list of all those sources over there. So you can, search them on library website as well, if you want to.
My name is Shaista Zubin, and I'm from psychology department. I have a question that sometime a link is shared on Moodle LMS for my class, and the link doesn't open for my students. It opens for me, and I can search it, I can read it, and if I find it interesting and I share it, then they cannot open it. So what could be the problem, and what is the solution for this?
Okay. The thing is, all the subscription-based databases that we subscribe for, for students and faculty users, they are IP-based. You cannot use those sources outside the FCCU boundaries, right? You must be connected with the IP of FCCU and log in with your, student IDs or email or your faculty email that FCCU given you. So this is the reason without IP of FCCU, they are not accessible. So they must be try to access it through their house or somewhere else. That's why it's not accessible. So these are sources are IP based for the, reserved use. IPS.
What is this?
IP means the internet of FCCU.
And
First, you have to connect with the internet of
Yeah.
FCCU, and you must use your FCCU email address. Otherwise, you are not able to access that piece of information. But if you are sharing that source of information, if there is this tab for download, you can directly download the source and share it that way as well.
It is in the class. It happens in the class.
Okay, this is one of the issues I've heard about it. We are facing some IPs issues again. We are trying to register our IPs, like in IT department. So we are working on it. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes in Ewing Memorial Library, I'm not able to access the database because of these, issues. So we are working on it. It will be better in no time. I will again remind them to do it quickly as they can.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's session. Just a reminder, in case you have not scanned the QR code and marked your attendance, you are requested to please do so. And that's it for the day. Thank you.
And I would like to mention it in future, if you, while using these OER sources or anything relevant to, online sources, if you want to seek some help, you can always come to the library. I'm available in Ewing Memorial Library. Hafsa is available in Digital Library, Fence Digital Library. We are always open to help, right?